Hello friends, I wanted to record this video and let you know why I wrote this book and why I had to put this out there to the world and why it's been on my mind. I just had to do it. I had to do it because I recognize that there's so much need in this world. I'm inspired by Warren Buffett. As he said, somebody is sitting in the shade today because somebody else planted a tree long ago. Those are wise words. Planning ahead. There's an African proverb, and it says, if you want to have prosperity for a year, plant grain. If you want to have prosperity for 10 years, plant trees. If you want to have prosperity for a lifetime, grow people. Growing people, love in abundance, having mind to think ahead, having this succession planning, having this mentoring mindset of saying, who's going to take over? I believe our country, the United States of America, was founded on the principle, and the reason why it's great is because it had the mindset that we can do better. That we're not stuck and we're not stagnant, we're not oppressed. That there's freedom. The sky's the limit. The blue sky. We can see, we can imagine, we can grow. It's interesting because I think about some of the videos that I've watched as I've binge-watched a lot of YouTube. I get stuck on YouTube. I love YouTube. I love long-form videos. Jeff Bezos talks about his dream of having colonies in space and thinking, what if we had 1 trillion people and we had 1,000 Mozarts and 1,000 Einsteins and 1,000 of these greatest minds in the world that has ever lived? What if we had lots and lots of those people? I believe that a rising tide floats all ships. And that's what I'm attempting to do with this book. And this conversation, as Bob and Sally are having a conversation at the table, they're talking about the hard stuff in life. Often I watch these awesome YouTube promoters and I love these people, men and women, working so hard to give their knowledge into life that they've learned to equip other people. They're making a profit. Everybody has to pay the bills. We want to equip. A lot of people are promoting offense. Hey, this is what you need to do to make the money, to make the buck, to sell more. Having offense. I love that. Offense is crucial. What about defense? I don't hear a lot of defensive strategies. Defense, offense. That old saying, offense wins games, defense wins championships. Because we can go up like a rocket and then down like a rock. So I hear of rags to riches, back to rags. When people get to riches, we want to stay riches. And that old saying, get rich in your niche. But also, there's wealth and fortune within a mess. And use your mess for your message. This isn't necessarily my mess, but it's a mess that I've seen so many people fall into. And I wanted to speak for them, for all those people who weren't able to communicate their message through their mess, and to help other people. And I wanted to be that person to help to start this conversation about defense, about protection, about doing the right things in the right order at the right time to get the right results. I want this to be an education. I want it to be motivation. I want people to be entertained. I want people to be getting the results that they want. This book is designed and written for Sally and the lessons that Sally learned. But more importantly, I think, this lesson is for me in my generation, as my parents are part of the biggest population, the baby boomers. I wanted to make sure that my parents, my in-laws, the people that I love that are around me, that they are prepared, that they're planning, that they have a succession, and I know that my time will come too. And I want to set up succession planning for my businesses to leave that legacy, as Dr. Stephen Covey talks about, as I'm so inspired to live, to learn, to love, and to leave a legacy. However, if we're not prepared for leaving a legacy, if we don't have the documents in place, if we don't have the checklist, if we don't have the things that need to be done to have those hard conversations, it's just puff, it's air, it's smoke. And that's sad, because this could have been avoided. And those 5 words that are spoken are so powerful, potent. And these are conversation starters. Is this book would be 5,000 pages or more. It's impossible. Everybody's different. And I equate financial planning and tax planning and estate planning and legal planning, all these things, to similar to the whitewater river rafting of the greatest rivers in the world. As if the water changes through time, and it could change through rain. It could change through a rock or a log or some other obstacle getting in the way. Now the river's changed, and you have to get out and scope the river. You have to see the new changes, and being flexible and having good data and numbers are the language of business. That's why I went into accounting. It's not boring stuff, man. This stuff is important. Having good data, having good books, having good resources to prepare. And it's not about the false prophets of the how much you're making. And that's why I say false prophets, because it's how much did I make? And people boast about how much I make. It's about how much you get to keep. So when that due diligence comes of an IRS audit, the litigating attorney, the big bad wolf gonna huff and puff and blow stuff down, or you go to sell a business and due diligence, the buyer wants to buy, and they're gonna say, you got an ugly baby. Your business is ugly. And they're like, it's my baby, and they get so offended. And I've seen that so many times in IRS audits, and that's why I don't let people go to IRS audits, because they get poked. I've seen the best people who I thought were gonna hold their stuff together get so riled by the IRS. And I riled so many people just by doing their job and by just asking in-depth questions. They get riled up. It gets emotional. Their ugly baby gets threatened. How offensive would it be to be like, oh, your baby, man, it's ugly. So many people, their businesses are their ugly baby. I know my business. I look at my business and I hate that word, small business. And I get it, it's under $10 million. But in my world, there's nothing small about my business. It's my life. It's who I am. It becomes my identity. I wear this shirt all the time. I've got 6 of these shirts. And my wife makes fun of me all the time. And I went off of I don't want to have decision fatigue, Mark Zuckerberg and all these other people who just have this same line of clothes, and they have all their Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's all the same, it's clean or whatever, it's dry clean. I didn't want to have that decision fatigue. And my wife's, it's not decision fatigue, hon. It's excitement. I love getting dressed up. I love wearing new things. I'm like, that's great, hon. For me, I want to focus. I want to have that checklist. You can relate to my wife, or you can relate to me, or have something in between. That's great. I like to keep things simple because I want to free up my mind for creativity. And that's where accounting, and that's where having structure creates more freedom than it does restriction. Because if you have a time blocked off for your week, month, and a year, and this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to work on, and you say no to the most of the distractions so that you can say yes to the most important things. Because often we get distracted and we say yes to the things that are not that important, and we never get back to the most important thing. I'm so inspired. I get so excited about that story about the rocks. There's this college professor, and he takes this big cylinder jar, and he says to the class, to these graduate students, are you convinced that this is full? This jar? And everybody's like, no, it's not full. The professor takes a bunch of boulders and puts in there, fills it to the stuff. And he asks the class, is the jar full? And the class is like, starting to get it. Okay. And they're like, some people are like, yeah, some people no, and there's some jokers like, oh yeah, it's full. Then he takes the pebbles, puts the pebbles in. Now is it full? Class is like, obviously not. Then he takes sand, fills in the sand in the cracks. Is it full? No. You see where this is going? Then he takes water. He fills it up. Then he says, is it completely full? And everybody's laughing. What's he going to pull? Is it another trick question? Then the professor says, what is the moral of the story? Why am I doing this? One of the students says, no matter how much you got on your plate, you can always squeeze some more in. And the professor says, that's good, but that's not the moral of the story. The moral of the story is, unless you put the big boulders in first, you'll never get them in. Doing the most important things. We get so busy with life is we're pursuing and we get these ideas of, how do I make all this money? And that's great. Yes, I love that. I get sucked into those. How do I get 5-star reviews? And how do I build and grow? And I'm plugging in, I'm listening to all that stuff. But what about the defense? What about the stuff that's not so like firecrackers and blowing up and looking at all this money that you're making, but they're not showing all the money that they're spending? They're not showing the bottom line. They're not showing how much money they're keeping and how much money they have and what can they write off. They're not showing their tax returns, man. They're not showing what the bottom line in their bank account and what they're spending the money in. Are they deducting things? Is it legal, ethical, moral? What would the IRS auditor say about this? Would the IRS auditor say, oh yeah, that's great? Or no, hey, you got problems. You're overpaying. Where's the documentation? What happens in that due diligence? So this book is for everybody. This book is for people who want to do smart things with their money and their life and their time. This book is written for you. And it transcends just the basic knowledge of tax and accounting and legal and the snore fest. And everybody's like, why would I invest my time and resources and energy? I'd rather be pursuing all that glamour and making money. But what about keeping the money? One of my mentors, he talks about decrease your top line, increase your bottom line, and decrease your headaches. That seems like an amazing equation to me. That seems good. Less headaches, more bottom line, less top line, because it blows my mind. I kind of stutter and I stumble and I got to edit that out. That most of the time when companies file bankruptcy, it's after a banner quarter or a month or a period and they had a big sale. And what happens is that they got all this potential money coming in, but it's 60, 90, 180 days out. But they got all this money going out the door. They got to pay for those expenses before they can pay and then get that money. And it's sad because that accounting, budgeting, and finance and making sure that we're spending not more than what we have and having that budget and having those good numbers and having those data-driven analysis to analyze, are we making good decisions based upon the data that we have? My clients, the people that come to me, they say, listen, I'm concerned about building wealth, protecting wealth, and controlling wealth. And what they're really saying also, they're saying that they don't want to run out of money in retirement. They're concerned about the rising healthcare costs. They're concerned about taxes and more taxes. Majority of people that are going into retirement aren't going to be able to retire and they'll have to work through their retirement. And a lot of times people are getting encore careers. They're starting side hustles or they're writing books or they're putting on videos and making money off of being an influencer or creative. And that's great. That becomes another tax issue. Being self-employed, there's a lot of taxes, and protecting and decreasing your taxes, and there's other expenses going out the door because instead of working for somebody, now you got to cover health insurance and you got to cover retirement, you got to cover all these other things that your employer was covering before, vacation times. Now, being self-employed, you don't get vacation. And I hear a lot of videos and people are like, every time my phone ding, that's $1,000 sale, and I went to sleep and I woke up the next day and there's 12 dings and I just made $12,000 while I slept. That's awesome. Bravo. Congrats. If you can do that, that's great. I think that's the minority, not the majority. I see that more people are doing that, and that's great, and figuring out those systems, but having that defense and having that well protected what money's going out the door to get those $12,000 dings. How much are they actually keeping? Somebody could be making millions, but because they spent more than they made, now they're bankrupt. It's not always about how much you make, but how much you keep, and doing smart things and having good people around you to keep that balance and to keep those records and to plan. Somebody might be good at making money, but they might not be good at keeping money or controlling or understanding where those things are. That's why we have 4 pillars. So I look at a steeple of a house. We want to build wealth, want to protect wealth, and we want to control wealth, right? It's a steeple. But there's 4 pillars to the house, which is the data-driven analysis. The second thing is asset protection. You work so hard. You want to protect your asset. And having asset protection and decreasing your liability is so key. The third is tax mitigation. We want to reduce our taxes to the legal minimum and not overpay our taxes, but so many people do, and they don't have good advice. And maybe there's these huge, thick 500-page books on how to do tax planning, but oh my gosh, trying to implement that stuff, it's just wow. Some of that stuff is really technical. What if you do it wrong? And there's all these issues. And the fourth thing is legacy planning and leaving a legacy, leaving the legacy and living the dream that you want to live. In today's society where the internet is in our phones, everywhere we go, we're being tracked. We have Siri, we have tracking on our phones, on our watches, our lives. The threat is inside our house, inside our phones, inside our computers, inside our digital wallets. Protecting ourselves, protect and not being ripped off. I hear so many scams of crypto and various scams. It's just really sad. So this book is for Bob, for Sally, for the kids, for everybody. This is why I wrote the book, to equip people to do smart things with their money, to not only have offense but also have defense, to live that abundance life that you are meant to live, that you deserve to live, that you should live it to the fullest. Make sure that it's a tax write-off, if ethical, moral, above board, and I can teach you how to do that and teach you the right ways and teach you what the IRS is looking for, because I spent a good 6 years at the IRS as an auditor, understanding what they're looking for. I've written books and I've got courses. I can help educate you to have that defense and then educate you. And I work with attorneys, financial planners, estate planning attorneys, law firms, and as the center, the hub of being this fiduciary, being this family office, I'm working with all these professionals to help to accomplish your goals. As we start with understanding what your goals are, number one. Number two, creating those key success indicators to help you to achieve those goals. What are the things that are going to help you to achieve those goals? Number three, protect, eliminate the problems, eliminating the threats. And number four, execute in the right order at the right time to get the right results. So come with me on this journey. Let's have this conversation. This like Bob and Sally having the tough conversations. Let's talk about, let's celebrate the wins. Let's celebrate all the money that you're making. But we want to protect that money too. We don't want to just fly out in taxes or fly out in anything that's going to cost you more. And my definition of a tax is something that as your income rises, your expense rises. That seems silly. Don't we want to increase our income, decrease our expenses, keep more? But let's figure out how to shelter that, but also get rid of headaches. I know a lot of people have just fired their staff and fired their team and just really downsized because they didn't want to be doing all this other stuff. And as we get back to Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, understanding that E-Myth and how important that is, that we want to do smart things with our money and our time and really do things that get you excited, that you are meant to do and to live, to live, to love, to learn, to leave a legacy. Those things are beautiful. So let's celebrate. Let's have this conversation. Let's plan for the hard stuff. So when the hard stuff comes, that when that big bad wolf comes, that we're prepared, that we're not caught off guard. I'm excited to have this journey and to talk about preparing and having defense so that you can win and keep. Until next time, until we talk again, blessings. Take care.